Why are you standing up for this bag again, Kelly? Blair complained. I thought that a law enforcement officer would have more sense than to believe in tarot readings, Kevin said mockingly as he glared at the bearded man wearing the cheesy purple robe. You guys go ahead and have fun. I'm going to look for my wife. Hey, don't be in such a hurry to leave. This guy's pretty good. Don't you want to find out what he has to say about your future? Blair bellowed as he quickly pulled Kevin back. You really ought to give him a try. He's eerily accurate, Officer Emmett added. Whether he's accurate or not doesn't matter to me. I don't believe in any of this stuff, Kevin replied coolly. He started to walk away, but the man stopped him. He couldn't let Kevin leave yet because Blair had ordered him to embarrass him. Even if he couldn't beat him in a fight, he could at least insult him. I told you I don't believe in any of this. Now let me go, Kevin ordered him. Kevin didn't know what kind of game Blair was playing, but he was sure that this guy had some tricks up his sleeve. Besides, he still had to find Lily, and he really didn't have the time to waste on this nonsense. Don't be angry, young man. I'll do your reading for free. Professor Futurioso smiled as he started to shuffle the deck of cards. He deliberately acted shocked. I hope you're not the fool that showed up in Kelly's reading. You do realize that as long as you stay in contact with Kelly, you'll only bring her bad luck. In addition, you won't have any good fortune in your own life either. You'll be forced to spend the rest of your life mooching off your wife's family, he added. That's another good reading. You really know what you're doing, Blair laughed out loud. Don't listen to him, Kevin. Even a good tarot reader can make mistakes, Officer Emmett reassured Kevin. But Kevin wasn't upset at all. He just stood there and looked at the man from head to toe, trying to figure him out. The more he looked at the guy, the more he thought something wasn't right about him. His robe didn't seem to fit him right, and his goatee looked like it had been glued onto his chin. It really doesn't bother me, Kevin stated frankly as he turned his head and looked at Officer Emmett. Don't tell me you actually believe this guy. Well, everything he said about me was true, Officer Emmett said firmly. She had no doubts that the tarot reader was genuine. Face it, Kevin, there's nothing you can do to change your fate, Blair sneered. So, you're really that good, are you? Kevin glared at the man. Since you're so skilled, did you see that today would turn into a complete disaster for you? I only know what the cards tell me, he responded indignantly. Ma'am, my advice is to stay away from this man. He can only bring you bad luck. If you continue to have anything to do with him, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Blair took Officer Emmett by the arm and pulled her away from Kevin. See, Kelly, I'm not the only one who's told you that. Kevin's a bad influence. Officer Emmett nodded regretfully and started to turn away from Kevin. She was very conflicted about the whole situation. Kevin could only sigh. He didn't want to interfere in Officer Emmett's life, but this person had gone too far. If you know so much about tarot cards, you should know that the Fool card can also mean a new beginning. Just because he's dressed in shabby clothing doesn't mean he'll bring misfortune. The other way to look at it is that someone will bring good things to Officer Emmett's life, Kevin explained so that everyone could hear him. They were all surprised to hear Kevin's interpretation of Officer Emmett's cards. Could he actually be right? The man was stunned and looked incredibly embarrassed. Blair had paid him a lot of money to trick Officer Emmett. How could this loser know so much about tarot readings? The guy had no idea how to respond. I've had it with this, Kevin scowled as he got right in his face. I think you're a fake, and I already predicted that today would be a disaster for you. Then Kevin shoved the man, sending him sprawling on the sidewalk in front of his kiosk. What are you doing, Kevin? You can't just hit him for no reason at all, Blair roared. He couldn't let Kevin ruin his plans like this, especially when Kelly was just about to say yes to setting a wedding date. He's right, Kevin. You can't just shove people around when you don't agree with them, Officer Emmett scolded him. But Kevin didn't pay any attention to their objections. He glowered at the man as he struggled to get up off the ground. Young man, You're letting your temper get the best of you, and now you're ignoring some very useful advice. If you don't change your ways now, you'll never get control of your violent urges." The man advised Kevin as he did his best to ignore the pain caused by his fall. By now, the crowd of onlookers was starting to defend him. "Just because he said something you didn't like, that's no excuse to get physical," an older gentleman shouted. "It's not his fault you don't believe what he said about you. He wasn't trying to hurt you," another onlooker chimed in. Blair was absolutely ecstatic when he heard what everyone was saying to Kevin. He'd embarrassed him, and all it had cost was a few bucks. But Kevin didn't care what any of these strangers were saying about him. He just reached out and pulled the man's fake goatee off his chin. "Did you see that? The fake tarot card reader has a fake beard," Kevin proclaimed as he held up the clump of hair for everyone to see. "You've gone too far. So what if I had a fake beard?" The man growled at Kevin. "What else about you is false?" Kevin glared as he grabbed the man's purple robe and yanked it off of him. The crowd was shocked for a moment and then broke into laughter. Under his robe, he was wearing a cheap suit. "Now what do you have to say for yourself?" Kevin asked him sternly. The man began to stammer as he searched for an explanation, but he knew he'd been caught. Kevin looked Officer Emmett in the eyes and gave her a wink. "So, you're a scam artist, are you? I didn't believe any of your nonsense in the first place," Officer Emmett told him as she pulled out her phone. "How about I get someone to take you down to the police station to find out who you really are?" Kevin was slightly amused by all this. Scammers are getting pretty good lately. This one actually had fooled a police lieutenant. "Please, help me, Mr. Blair," the man shouted as he broke into tears and continued to beg for mercy. "You have to do something. My mother-in-law is sick and I have 2 toddlers at home. My whole family depends on me to feed them. If I go to jail, what will happen to them?" "Get lost! Why the hell are you coming to me for help?" Blair said angrily as he pushed the man away. Officer Emmett had a hard time getting through to the station, and then realized they probably had a skeleton crew today because everyone was on crowd control for all the activity downtown. She couldn't call the regular 911 line because this wasn't that kind of an emergency. "I'm going to cut you a break," Officer Emmett told him firmly. "This is your chance to turn over a new leaf. If I ever catching you doing something like this again, or if I even hear that you've been ripping people off, I'll have you brought in and I'll throw the book at you." He'd really lucked out and he knew it. But Officer Emmett still hadn't gotten an answer from Kevin about the power pill. When Kevin exposed Professor Futurioso as a fraud, Emmett decided to cut the guy some slack and just give him a warning. Thank you, Officer Emmett," the man quickly replied, and then he slinked away. Seeing that the fun was over, the crowd began to disperse. Officer Emmett walked over to Kevin and said, "I'm so sorry I believed what that liar told me. Can you ever forgive me?" She felt extremely awkward about the whole thing. After all, she was in charge of her precinct's criminal investigation unit. How could she have been fooled by a swindler and a fake beard? If word of this got out, she would never be able to face her colleagues again. A brain's a good thing to have. Next time you go out, you should take it with you. Kevin teased her as he gave her a broad smile. "I can't argue with that," she responded. "But you never answered my question. Do you happen to have a power pill you could give me?" "A power pill? I didn't bring one along with me. We'll have to meet another day if you really want one," Kevin replied cautiously. He wasn't in a good mood right now, so he didn't want to give her an herbal med quite so easily. "Okay, I'll get in touch with you later, but you'd better have one on you next time," Officer Emmett warned him playfully. Kevin had left Lily waiting for far too long, so he quickly said goodbye and headed into the crowd. Officer Emmett looked a little disappointed. She sighed and started to walk towards the mall's exit on Halstead Street. Once she realized that Professor Futurioso was actually a fraud, it hit her that Blair had set the whole thing up. Then she remembered that time when he'd gotten someone to put on a mountain lion costume at the campsite. It bothered her that he could do this kind of thing over and over again just to manipulate people. Kevin had been walking for about 10 minutes and still hadn't reached the middle of the mall. After all, it was a huge complex and it was pretty crowded. As he looked around, Kevin suddenly had an idea. It occurred to him that he'd never really done anything romantic for Lily. So why not do something spontaneous right now? Kevin thought about it for a moment and then he sent a text to Tyler Dawn. While he was doing that, Lily and Rachel were slowly walking through the mall doing some window shopping. They hadn't noticed yet, but there were two men walking near them. They were Doug Butler, the man whose name Kevin had mocked at the campsite, and Doug's friend Mason. "Would you like to have dinner with me this evening?" Doug asked Lily as he gave her a flattering smile. He'd been thinking about her day and night ever since he first saw her. And here she was walking through the mall with Rachel, one of the most talked about real estate executives in all of Chicago. So Doug and Mason had quickly hatched a plan to try and pick up both of the women at the same time. "I'm really sorry, Doug, but we have other plans. You're on your own for dinner," Lily refused politely. Mason gave his friend a wink and tried to charm them too. "Hang on, Lily. Don't be too hasty. I think fate must have brought us all together, and I'd like to ask Rachel to have dinner with me. Let's all go out together. How could you resist an offer like that?" Doug picked up Mason's lead and tried to change Lily's mind. "Let me get straight to the point, Lily. I really like you and I want you to be my girlfriend." Then he touched some icons on his phone screen. Moments later, all the lights on Halsted Street started to dim and the TV screens all over the mall lit up with the name Lily. This got the attention of all the shoppers in the mall. "I hope you like it, Lily. It was the only way I could think of to tell you how I feel about you," Doug told her proudly. Although the mall had been built by the KWTD Corporation, Doug's family had been doing business with Tyler Dawn's associates in Chicago for a long time. Doug had just sent a message to one of his contacts at the KWTD Corp to ask them to do him a favor. In exchange, his family would be willing to negotiate with them for a multi-million-dollar project. "Look, Lily, what's your name doing on all the screens?" Rachel exclaimed. She saw just how determined Doug was to get her attention. Lily was impressed to see her name flashing on screens all over the mall. Her reaction really got Doug's hopes up. But as Lily looked around at all of the screens, a familiar face caught her eye. She hurried over to Kevin and asked him, "What took you so long, sweetie?" Hearing the anxiety in Lily's voice made Kevin smile a little. "There were a ton of people at the entrance. It took me forever to squeeze through the crowd." When Mason saw Kevin arrived, he got a sour look on his face. In an attempt to help Doug win over Lily, he decided to try insulting Kevin. "Well, who's this guy? He looks like a real me. Do you see this light show? Doug set it up especially for Lily. I'll bet a like you could never top this." Mason boasted so loudly that everyone around them could hear. Of course, the crowd stopped to watch this public spectacle. They were impressed when they found out that it was Doug who had arranged for the light show. And when they heard him call Kevin a loser, they believed him. Doug broke into a self-satisfied grin when he overheard their comments. "I'll tell you what, Kevin. I like Lily, and I've decided I'm going to start dating her. If you have any common sense, you'll just back off. Maybe I'll invite you to our wedding," he said with disdain. "But don't bring any gifts. I'm sure you couldn't afford anything more than some cheap crap from a box store." Lily was about to speak up when Kevin decided to put Doug in his place. "Hey, aren't you..." Kevin said loudly enough for the crowd to hear. "I remember you. Maybe I shouldn't have fished you out of the water back at the campground. Then you wouldn't be here right now spoiling Lily's afternoon." Then Kevin glanced around at the TV screens and added, "There's one more thing. If you're trying to win my wife's affection, you'll have to try harder than this. What the hell were you thinking?" "Haven't you ever heard that a man's got to know his limitations?" Doug advised him. "If this doesn't impress you, let's see if you can do any better." 3 minutes from now, you'll see Lily's name along with mine up on all the screens," Doug bragged. "That's the difference between you and me. Do you understand what I'm saying?" This drew a lot of gasps from the onlookers. They could see how elegantly Doug was dressed and figured Kevin didn't stand a chance in this competition. He was really biting off more than he could chew. "I can't believe this guy. You're not even in the same league as my friend Doug," Mason remarked as he tried to egg Kevin on. "If you can do better than to spell out Lily's name and mine with 150,000 light bulbs, go right ahead," Doug added arrogantly. "Let's go home, honey," Lily whispered in Kevin's ear as she put her hand gently on his shoulder. She didn't want to see him get embarrassed on her account. "Mr. Williams, Kevin, do you want me to do anything?" Rachel asked him. She wasn't quite sure what to call him in a public place. He saw how uncomfortable Rachel looked and he patted Lily on the back and replied calmly, "There's no need for that." "What's that, Kevin? Afraid to do anything? Why don't you just get out of here?" Doug challenged him. He was getting more and more overconfident. "I've had about enough of this," Kevin muttered as he pulled out his phone and tapped on Tyler's number. Moments later, his friend answered and Kevin said nonchalantly, "Hey, how are you doing? I need you to turn off all of the lighting and TV screens at the Halstead Street Mall." Less than 10 seconds later, the entire mall went dark and all of the screens went black. "What's wrong?" everybody wondered. This couldn't be a coincidence, they thought. Had Kevin really done this with just one phone call? Doug and Mason were both stunned when they saw this. They had no idea what was going on. What puzzled them even more was, who did Kevin call? "You think you're the only one with connections in this town?" Doug said as he called the KWTD Corporation. Unfortunately for him, nobody answered his call. Then someone suddenly shouted, "Where did all these roses come from?" Everyone looked up and saw thousands and thousands of rose petals falling from the sky like raindrops. "Look up there!" another person yelled. Everyone was astonished to see an enormous blimp floating above the outdoor mall. There were people tossing roses out of it onto the crowds below. Suddenly, everyone heard loud whistling sounds coming from the east over Lake Michigan. It was a daytime fireworks display. Then the enormous dot matrix sign on the blimp spelled out, "Lily and Kevin forever." Next, 2 women were escorted through the crowd with microphones in their hands. It was Brittany Davis and Charity Boyer. The whole place went wild. What were they doing here? And who are Lily and Kevin? Everyone's eyes were fixed on Kevin and Lily as a woman slipped out of the crowd and handed Kevin a small pink gift box. Kevin took Lily by the hand and said, "You've been through a lot over the past few years. You've had to put up with everyone talking me, and you've put up with all the ridicule. Let's put all that behind us now and think about our future." Then he got down on one knee and held out a ring with a diamond as big as a walnut and said, "I love you, Lily. Will you marry me? Again?" Lily's eyes filled with tears and she covered her mouth to keep from screaming. She was so full of joy. "Say yes!" someone shouted from the crowd. Nobody knew who it was, but everybody joined in, repeating over and over, "Say yes!" When Kevin put the ring on Lily's trembling finger, she was so excited that she hugged him as tightly as she could, not wanting to ever let go. "Do you like my surprise?" Kevin asked. His only regret was that the fireworks would have worked a lot better at night. "I like it. I really like it," Lily replied excitedly. Suddenly, a huge commotion interrupted this touching scene and everyone started to panic. "Everybody, run!" came a scream by the entrance to the mall. Kevin looked over and saw a huge group of men dressed in white holding out large knives as they ran through the crowd. There was a large middle-aged man leading them and he looked like he was ready to kill someone. It was Craig Hill, Nolan Hill's father. After Kevin beat up Nolan, he spent almost a week in the hospital and it looked like he might not pull through. He was still bedridden and his prognosis wasn't great. When he heard about this, Craig was furious. He got his people to find out as much as they could about Kevin and then they all rushed from their home in Detroit to Chicago to get their revenge. "Lily, you and Rachel should get out of here right now," Kevin warned them as he reached into his jacket and pulled out his night dagger. Then he sprinted toward the group of men. Kevin was afraid that they would hurt the innocent people in the crowd. He had to stop these men before things got out of hand. "Kevin," Lily anxiously called out to her husband. "Lily, let's go. If Kevin is running at them, he must know what he's doing. We'll only slow him down if we stay here," Rachel pleaded with her friend. She kept a cool head and struggled to pull Lily toward the exit. "Let's get out of here, then call the police. That's the only way we can save Kevin," Rachel insisted. "So, you're the head of the Hill family?" Kevin asked as he stood in front of them holding the night dagger in his hand. He was sizing up his opponent, who looked a heck of a lot like Nolan Hill, only older. "And you're Kevin?" Craig Hill roared angrily. "It looks like you're here to avenge Nolan?" Kevin inquired. He was doing his best to buy as much time as possible so that more people could get to safety. "You've ruined my son's life. Now I'm going to take your life to even up the score," Craig growled as he waved his knife at Kevin and shouted to the men behind him. As soon as the words left his mouth, they all ran towards Kevin. Kevin was absolutely enraged by this, and he gathered his energy together to face them alone. He was already far more powerful than any of the Hill family's men. The only thing that made the fight equal was that there were so many of them. Kevin grabbed Craig by the wrist and twisted it to the side. The move made his attacker's knife fly out of his hand. Then Kevin gave him a sharp kick to the ribs. As Kevin turned around, he felt at least 4 men approaching him from the rear, slashing with their knives. He managed to avoid all of them, but every time he dealt with one attacker, 2 more seemed to appear. This wasn't going to be an easy victory.
Please subscribe to the Pocket FM YouTube channel and press the bell icon for instant notification. Check out our channel for more such exciting shows.